In this session, we will talk about how to choose your project, your Master of Science or PhD project. We will take a look at the sources of information for what to study and how to choose a project between those sources of information, within those sources of information, and how to prepare a project proposal. What are the key points of that? Okay, now let's go ahead. I mean, what could be the sources of information here? There can be some proposals by the academic staff or the departments. I mean, your advisor, of course, the first source of information could be his research area, her research area, or her research topics that she proposed. Or sometimes departments open up some research areas or research topics as well, like a department interested in computer vision projects particularly, for example, or in, let's say, decision support systems, or in computer security, for example, whatever. Okay, these are your main sources of information for choosing your project or to understand what you want to study. Of course, the best one is this one. Your own goals and learning objectives are the ideal source of information. But if they're not available, you can go ahead and seek for other sources of information. If you're sure about what you want, okay, I want to research, for example, this topic in this domain. So if you're strict and if you're well organized about it, you're obsessed about it, no problem. It is the best. I mean, it's the ideal situation. However, when they're not available, you can go ahead and seek help from your advisor, the professors in the department, or you can take a look at the past projects, preferably had been carried in that department you're studying, or in other, for example, computer engineering departments. You can go ahead and do brainstorming as well. It could be interesting. You can brainstorm with your colleagues. You can brainstorm with your advisors, even with people outside. I mean, your profession could be interesting because most of the projects are interdisciplinary. Even the people in other professions can give you some insight, can give you some different ideas about stuff. These are, again, brainstorming is nice. Sometimes departments do it on some given times, like periodically, like maybe in once a week or once in a month or something like this. They just gather together and have a coffee and drink and try to discuss about their current studies and what else could be done. These are types of brainstorming that could be useful. And when you, I mean, decide on, let's say, more or less, let's say, discipline to carry on your thesis. For example, I want to make a thesis in computer engineering or something. You can read about the subject area. I mean, about the works done there, and it is the best one to start a, let's say, systematic analysis of the subject area. It is called like this. And they can be done with research territory maps, relevance trees, and spider diagrams. Research territory maps show how topics are related to each other. Let's take a look at it. See, the territory maps show, for example, there's a territory map here about software engineering. you see how these topics are related to each other. You see you see the topics here, let's say sub areas, and their relationship, how they are related with each other, are given here. Okay. And relevance trees are also could be interesting. It breaks down a particular subject or research question into lower and lower levels of detail. This is also popular. You will see that maybe it's already familiar for you. You see like the tree structure here. Suppose that we're talking about AI as the, let's say, root of the area of study, and it can be divided into application areas, AI techniques, knowledge representation, philosophical issues. These are just sub branches about this whole study domain. And you see how they are just in tree structure. See, get in detailed. Okay, you can say that I want to work on, for example, genetic algorithms. I will see where I'm located here. AI, under AI techniques, machine learning, and genetic algorithms is where I'm located. Just relevance trees. It could be done. And spider diagrams can also be useful. It combines features of research territory maps with those of relevance trees. You will see a mixture of these two to a degree in the spider diagrams. Let's see the example. Okay, again, this is in software engineering area. You see the spider diagrams here. As you see, these ones look like the tree structure, like the relevance trees. However, the territory maps are also showing the relationships between them. See, it's not like a tree directly, but showing the relationships as well. So it means that it becomes a spider diagram. It would be much better if you come up with a type of diagram what you study. So you should be sure either a territory map or relevance tree or spider diagram on the domain that you're working could be interesting to have, so that you should know or you should have an idea about what to study, what are my strong points and what are the weak points that I need to emphasize and work on or study more, make research more. It would be much more clear. Okay, then after you read a lot or you listened to your advisors a lot, you brainstormed a lot, and or you're just driven, or you just love a topic. That's it. It's time to choose a project. It means that you should define the scope or something. Okay, what I'm going to do. Okay, this is very important because it is not a, let's say, random project. It would be your project. So since it is your project, it would be your project. The first one is very important. The project needs to be within your capabilities, and the project needs to interest you. These are some internal or most important motivation factors for your project. Of course, this one is again a very important factor for your project to be successful as well. I mean, the topic you're studying should be aligned or should be proper for the degree program. For example, if you're doing a PhD thesis in computer engineering, I mean, it shouldn't be about, for example, okay, physics or something. I mean, it should be the majority part of the PhD thesis should be related to that program you're interested in. And it needs to be within your capabilities, else you can have some trouble. And it should be interesting for you, okay? I mean, if it's not interesting for you, what's gonna happen? You can still be successful no matter what, like a work or something it would be, but it means that you will have difficult time for motivation. I mean, it would be hard for you to motivate yourself if the project topic does not interest you. So with your advisor, it means that you have to come up with a middle point, like after a bargain or something. She has some, let's say, ideas on her own, and you have some, say, interests on your own. There should be a middle point that you agree together. And the other ones are also important, okay? The project needs to have a sufficient scope, okay? It should be, if it is a master's thesis, it should be like a master's thesis. If it's a PhD thesis, it means that you need to propose something new, something unique in the domain. It means that, again, a scope is very important here. It would be sufficient. If it is more than sufficient or quite complex, again, it could be problematic. And the project needs to have a serious purpose. Okay, so you should be doing this for an outcome, for something beneficial. So, or not just theoretically. I mean, ideally, it shouldn't be. The purpose shouldn't be getting a master's degree, getting a PhD degree. No, I mean normally your project has to have a purpose, a meaning. Like finding a cure for something, or finding a better algorithm or more efficient algorithm for calculating some, let's say, hard computation task, whatever. And the project needs to have a clear outcome as well. When will it be finished? What am I expecting? What is the outcome of? This is my target. I mean, what I'm going to achieve should be discussed and agreed upon first. And finally, this is also a very, very important stuff, because your Master of Science studies roughly take 3 years in our department, and your PhD studies will be 5+ years or something like this. I mean, it could be a very long time, in fact, especially in computing domain. So the resources required for the project should be available or can be obtained, like a data set. You need a sophisticated hardware for accomplishing a task. You should be sure that they could be provided in the run. Like if it's master thesis, it should be available in 2 or 3 years, or like in PhD. If they will be lacking or there are questions, you can go ahead and maybe rediscuss your project topic or rediscuss your scope, whatever. It's important. There is also a suitability test for projects. So what test is very good one, very straightforward. Is the topic meaningful? Will it be of value for anyone? Or what contribution will it make? We can just summarize this as what happens, or what do we lose? What do we lose if we don't do this project? What do we lose if you don't do this project? It's something like this. I mean, if it's it's also driving you to make the project topic more interesting as well. So what test is very important? So it should make sense. What you propose should make sense. And then justification. Can you explain your project and justify it in simple terms? Yes, you should be able to do this. So for outsiders as well, even in your own profession or in other professions. You should estimate your understanding. Can you put a figure on what you know about your chosen subject? I mean, do you have the assets or background or available techniques? Like, do you have the skills for this project? And contacts, like Are the contacts you require for your project available, accessible, and willing to help? Okay, you will need resources, human resources here. I mean, you will need human help, especially your supervisor. For example, if you're pursuing a project out of the interest area of your supervisor, okay, you will not get the enough aid from your supervisor, most probably. So you will be lacking on that part. And finally, the project proposal. Can you write a substantive, strong proposal for your project? So this is most probably very, very important, especially if you're seeking funding from some institutions for your project. You should convince people, not only your jury or not only your supervisor, you should convince outsiders to make them support your project by means of financial means. Okay. Now, when you're preparing a project proposal, there are the implicit content of it and explicit content of it. Okay, both are important for even if it is your Master of Science project or PhD project. They are both important, but if you're seeking again financial support or something, or if you're just proposing this as a project, both of them are very, very multiply more important in this situation. Now let's take a look at them, starting from the implicit content. Introduction to the subject area. So it sets the context for the project. Okay, what am I studying? I mean, the title, it should motivate the relevance of the subject area. It should be included in your, like it's your flag. I mean, the first striking part of your proposal. It should have an overview of the current research in the area. It will demonstrate current activities in the subject area, and it shows your understanding of current research as well. It should identify a gap which makes this project unique or interesting or motivating, identify a need for further investigation or reinterpretation of some well-known facts. And it should also identify how your work fills the gap. Okay, this is important to persuade your professors or persuade the jury that will provide you funding. It should explain how your project fills the gap. And it should also identify risks and solutions. It should highlight the benefits that can be derived from your project and take into account the risks to your projects as well, your B plans and C plans other than your ideal plan. These are all about the implicit content of the project you're proposing. And about the explicit structure, there should be a clear, concise, and preferably no acronyms title of your proposal. Okay, it should be as simple as possible, preferably no acronyms, because acronyms can be troublesome, especially if professors or researchers from different disciplines read your work and get prepared. Or it's not surprising that many different researchers from different disciplines will read your work, because most of the projects are interdisciplinary, as we mentioned. And the aims and objectives should be given, the aims are broad statements of intent identifying the project purpose, and the objectives should be clear, identify specific, measurable, important achievements, quantitative and qualitative measures depending on the domain of your research. So how an outsider should understand that this project gets completed. Okay, if I achieve this and this and this, it means that the project will be completed. And the expected outcomes and deliverables should be defined. Identify what will be produced or submitted at the end of the project or within the project. And the keywords are important. Identify the topic areas of the project draws on, so that the other researchers can reach your study more easily later on. Okay. What else? Let's continue with the explicit structure. Should be an introduction, background, and overview part. Like they are just similar to each other. Overview of the project, like identification of research questions and hypotheses, elaboration of what you're seeking, and your motivation for the project should be here, and the motivation for you conducting the project. Why did you choose this particular topic should be introduced here. There should be a part related research. I think you're familiar with all of these from your previous studies. The identify others' work, they should be introduced. The publications and related literature about the same topic should be given within the proposal. And the methods should be discussed. It identifies the research methods and project methods that will be used in your proposal. Are you going to do a theoretical investigation, for example, or a case study, whatever? And the research requirements, identify the resources that will be needed for the project. Do you need a particular hardware, or will you carry on this project on a particular software platform? Will you have access to some particular data, or will you seek help from a personal whatever? Or do you need some human volunteers for your project, whatever? It could be anything. Those are your research requirements, and it should be in the explicit structure. And the project plan gives more or less detailed timetable for the project, when the tasks will be done, and deadlines for the deliverables as well will be located here. Now I should make a point here which could be interesting for you. This explicit structure can be done by, for example, professor or researcher outside of your domain. Suppose that you're proposing a computer engineering thesis, but for example, a professor in mechanical engineering can read and have an idea about the explicit structure of this thesis, because he cannot understand very well what is inside, but he can just look at the skeleton or backbone of the proposal and see that's enough. Or like maybe where are your research requirements? They are not clear. Where your related research is missing or weak. He can comment on it. Okay, so an outsider can make some evaluation, or he can provide you feedback about the explicit structure of your proposal. However, about the implicit content, this one, you should most probably need feedback for an insider. A person who is expert in the area can give you a very valuable feedback about what you're studying. Okay, it is maybe it's I don't know whether it would be meaningful, but let's make an analogy with validation and verification in software engineering. Maybe it could be interesting. This is about, are we doing the right product? Like, are we doing the right research here? Are we in the good area? Are we doing something meaningful? This part should be critiqued by a person who is expert in the domain. And this part is like verification. Like, are we doing the product right? Are you doing this on some research techniques that well known? The proposal has some deliverables and keywords. Are they correct? And it has some well-known typical backbone in your. Maybe it could. This is my idea, by the way. It can be wrong. Just to give you an idea about the importance of implicit and explicit structures of your proposal. Okay, as a conclusion, we can say that choosing the right project is an important stage in any project. Why? Because you will spend your 2 to 3 years or like 5 to 7 years of your very, very valuable time in this project, right? Because this is for example, Master of Science, and this is for PhD, for example. So it should be as best as possible, as good as possible, because you will bury many years in it. I mean, and you don't want them to be wasted. And there are a number of techniques that can assist you with choosing the right projects. We just discussed this a few moments ago. And in a project proposal or project specification, you should stick to the required structure and address all the guiding questions as precisely as possible within the proposal. You see, those questions, you see, should be answered or should be satisfied by your proposal.